I'm on location in Plymouth, Michigan, and today we're going to talk about dead people. What happens to your house when you die? Is estate planning the most exciting thing in the world? No, but is it a really good idea if you're a homeowner? Absolutely. Let's talk to attorney Sean Nichols, who specializes in estate planning. So as a real estate agent, I run into clients once in a while that have to go through probate to sell their house. Can you talk a little bit about what is probate?
Sure. So probate is a court system, and in the context of real estate, it's basically just recreating someone's ghost. Say that I own a house and I pass away, and I'm the only name on that house. So, well, what happens to it? Well, I'm not alive to deal with it, obviously.
Right?
And we have not yet created technology to talk to people from beyond the grave. So
That may be coming. We don't know. Don't know yet.
Maybe. It's an incredible time.
Yeah.
So anyways, we need a process, a legal process as a society to recreate my ghost, to sell my property.
Yeah.
And that is what probate is in the context of real estate. And probate deals with some other matters, but for the purposes of real estate, think of probate like the ghost that gets created to deal with a house if it's in someone's name solely at the time of their death.
Okay, so let's talk about as far as real estate goes, because I know you said there's other aspects of it. How does somebody avoid going to probate?
That's a good question. There's several different ways to avoid probate. Probate is like the way of last resort. So I tell folks when I do estate planning consultations, there's 4 ways you can transfer something if you're to pass away. And in descending order, it's joint ownership, transfer on death designation, trust, with the last one being probate court. So if you have a house, you say, is there a joint owner on it? And if no, is there a beneficiary on it? Well, you can't put a beneficiary designation on a house. Is it owned by a trust? If yes, then the trust deals with the house. If none of those 3 apply, then the asset, in this case a house, goes to probate court. And that is how something winds up in probate court and how something can potentially avoid it. So for example, if I own a house with my wife and she and I are listed on there as spouses, so if I were to pass away, she still continues owning it. And because we're listed as tenants by the entireties, which is a form of co-ownership for married couples, when I pass, she continues owning it, so it doesn't go to probate. Now, if she were to pass as well, then the house could potentially go to probate. And that's how it can become a little tricky, picking what mechanism makes the most sense to potentially avoid having real estate go to probate and avoid that administrative court process.
Okay, and that's something great about talking to you, is that you're able to help people navigate that whole process, like what is best for them, because it's, I feel like it's like, real estate, it's like there's a normal process for most people, but sometimes you get where it's like, I don't know, an outlier where it's, with your situation, this is best for you.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so a big part of my day-to-day job, we've written over 620 estate plans to date, and a big part of that is sometimes job one is avoiding probate for real estate and whatever else people have that they want to pass on to their friends, family, loved ones, etc. So, yeah, that's a big part of it, though.
Okay, tell me about, because we're talking about probate being kind of like the last resort. So when somebody has to go to probate for, let's say it was their parents' house and they passed away, or, whatever the case may be, that process, why would somebody want to avoid that?
So the problem with probate, and it's really not a problem, it's just the way the system is designed. So probate's the last resort, right? So as a society, we need a way to deal with stuff where someone is a ghost and they aren't there to sell it. So because of that, it's a court process. And because it's a court process, probate has a lot of rules. I analogize it to kind of like traveling to a foreign land, unless you're an attorney. And a big part of an attorney's job when someone's in probate, or any court for that matter, is serving as a translator to guide their client through. So because it's a court process, it can be fairly administratively expensive in terms of court costs and legal fees, because it's just kind of labor intensive to go through a probate estate. So consequently, because it takes a lot of effort to go through probate, people will reach out on a daily basis to places like my office and come up with strategies to avoid probate, minimize taxes, etc., for the various things they own, a big part of which is real estate. A huge part, actually, of what we deal with is real estate and strategies to avoid it or probating it or what have you, depending on the case.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, so sometimes I have clients that, ask me, usually sometimes I know like enough to be dangerous about something, but this is not the case, which is why I refer you to those people. So they, they realize even if like, someone dies very young and you don't expect it, and so they have nothing set up and now they have to go to probate. So from what my clients tell me after, they're in the probate process is that it takes, I don't want to say a long time where you're like, years and years and years, but it's more of just like a lengthy, inconvenient process where there's like a lot of hoops to jump through. Is that right?
it is lengthy and inconvenient. Because it's a court process, there's a lot of steps and formalities that have to be followed. So, I tell folks the fastest that you can get a probate case done is about 7 months
Okay.
by law.
Okay.
On practical effects, on a practical level, I've found that probate takes a minimum of a year, in my experience.
Okay.
And it can extend longer if there's complex circumstances, creditors, family members fighting,
Okay.
that sort of thing. That's when you start hearing, when people start conveying, clients of yours start conveying sort of horror stories they've heard through the grapevine.
Yeah.
There's kind of it's just a bit of a pain in the rear to get through this probate process. And then there's, oh my gosh, it was a nightmare. We're stuck in court fighting. And,
Right.
it lasted 2 years and et
Yeah.
cetera. And that's where you kind of get those two classes of either way isn't good. I mean, you want to dodge both, right? You don't want to.
Right. Right.
One is worse than the other, but probate takes, fastest probate we've ever had through our office is that 7-month limit. We've had a couple go that fast. The client's Johnny on the spot.
Right.
Case, simple case, that sort of thing. But I tell folks, even on an uncontested probate, assume a year. So that's why, and you can usually sell the real estate sooner than that, depending on the case, but usually you can sell it sooner.
Yeah.
By the same token, still, it's an extra headache.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. Because you're looking at like a typical, selling process. You're selling the house, and it could really, you could close on a house anywhere from like 10 days to 45 days ish. And so when you're comparing that short of amount of time to 7 months, that's a lot to be dealing with when, if everything was set up, you really could just go much faster with it and not have to deal with all that stuff.
Yep.
So that sounds like, the way to go is to get everything set up ahead of time. And, we talked a couple years ago, and, I'm fairly young and I have everything set up.
Yeah.
Because you just never know.
Yeah.
And I feel like, didn't you say to me too that you're like, I usually don't get people this young in here?
That's correct. So you're ahead of the game on that one. I would say
Yeah.
the average age of my clients is probably in the 60s if I had to average it out.
Okay.
Probably the median would probably be in the 60s as well, very frankly.
Yeah.
And yeah, so the difference between probate versus, say, sending real estate through a trust is probate has all this court process involved, whereas trusts start outside of probate. So when a common estate planning tool for real estate to avoid probate, probably the best and most common tool, is to use a trust, and that will skip probate. And the time difference for like selling a house is much different. I mean, a trust, after someone passes, you can not that people want to run straight and put a for sale sign in the yard, but you can list it within less than a month or even
Right.
less than a couple weeks. A lot of times the biggest hang up is waiting for the death certificate to be issued.
Yeah.
Whereas with probate, it can be a couple months before a case is even open with the court. So
Yeah.
that's the difference, right? Maybe a month versus 7,
Yeah.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 months,
Right.
depending on the case.
Yeah, and if they wanted to move quickly, let's say sell it in a month or list it in a month, there's still, someone passes away and there's still a lot of things to do in that month. You're clearing the house, you're working on finances, that kind of thing. So really a month isn't that long because they're going to be doing other things anyway.
Yeah, there's a lot to deal with when someone passes, as you said. The big thing is what to do with the contents of the house. That's one of the most common questions we get. And a lot of times people just say, well, they just kind of work it out themselves,
Yeah.
or estate sales, getting things ready if there's any deferred maintenance, and that's stuff that you would know a lot about is
Yeah.
what deferred maintenance to address versus what to not, and that's where a good real estate agent with judgment discretion can say, hey,
Yeah.
do this, but don't do this because it's probably not a good ROI, return on investment for
Exactly.
the estate.
Exactly.
So that's that judgment discretion, just like how lawyers are paid for the judgment discretion, is what people hire real estate agents such as yourself for.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like if you own a house, then getting with you to be able to set up these things, the sooner the better.
Yep, I tell folks in a joking way, with estate planning, it's the easiest thing on the planet to procrastinate on, and estate planning is the catch-all term most
Yeah. Oh my
attorneys
gosh, that's
use.
so true. People don't think about it and they're like, I'll do that when I'm 70 or something.
It's true. We have people come in. I've had folks come in their 80s and they've never
Yeah.
written a will before. I think my record for never having written a will is somewhere in the 80s. I'd have to go and check the old files, but somewhere around there. And it's the easiest thing to procrastinate on because it deals with addressing part of the life cycle.
Right.
No one escapes father time. But very few of us know when father time, when our time on this planet will be gone. So that's why state attorneys say, hey, you can put off as long as you want, just put off until the day before you're very ill or
Right.
the day before you pass. At least that's what I say. So if you,
Oh, only if we knew. So the sooner the better for this stuff. And I see a lot of, my first time home buyers are in their early to mid 20s, and you're not thinking about that at the time about passing away. And, you're still in the midst of doing a lot of things. So it is something, though, that does need to be done. Yeah, it's on your mind, but get it done.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's very easy for younger folks to put it off because a lot of times people come in to see me the first time because they're in their 50s or 60s and they're dealing with their parents' affairs. And then they're
Yes.
saying, oh my gosh, my parents have passed and, we're dealing with their affairs, house, bank accounts, what have you. And so we really need to get that set up for ourselves.
Right.
And that's a big
Yeah, they're
driver,
going
too.
through it and then they're like, oh gosh, I guess I need to set that up too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to, leave nothing in place because the most labor-intensive cases tend to be those where someone didn't do any estate planning. It's
Yeah.
just the nature of the beast. It's kind of like that old, a stitch in time saves nine, or preventive maintenance saves you a lot of hassle down the road. It's
Yeah.
the same logic for estate planning,
Yeah.
honestly. It's just that's why attorneys emphasize it so much. Is
Yeah.
because the cost differential, the hassle, etc., of estate planning versus
Yeah.
a probate estate.
Yeah.
So,
So it might not be a very fun thing
no.
to do. And a very fun thing to spend your money on. What do you have to show for it right now? But in the long run, it's going to save your family a lot of hassle and a lot of money.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And a lot of the feedback I get from people is once they're done, they get a lot of peace of mind from just being done. They go, okay, I have a
Right.
plan done. I'm finally got this thing done. It's been
Right?
sticking around in the back of my mind for years because my mother passed or my father, and I know I need to get this done forever. So
Yeah.
now I finally got it done. And
Yeah.
I can just set it aside and, not look at it for a while.
Yeah. Huge weight off your shoulders.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.